Beginning the current Daf, Mesechta Kesuvos Daf Nun Tes. We begin 8 lines down at the top of the Amud. The Gemara is in the middle of a discussion between the Machlekes of Rav Ada bar Hava and between that of Rabbi Shmuel. And the Machlekes was regarding, we know that the woman gets mezainis, we know she gets things that she needs every week, and in place of that is that the husband gets from her maisidayim and the moiser, the excess of what her income is. But the machlekes was regarding what takes the place of what. Is it mezainis is tachas maisidayha and the more kesef is tachas the moiser? Or is it, like Rabbi Hava said, that the mezainis is in place of the moiser and the more kesef is tachas the maisidayha? I think one says, what's the machlekes dependent on? Those are the last words he said in the previous Daf. Rabbi Shmuel held, something that's shchiach is something else that's shchiach. Mezainis is shchiach, maisidayim is shchiach. In contrast to the Meiser. Rabbi Hava, however, held that needed the kates, the more kesef is a certain set amount. Her Meiser is a set amount, like we'll see on Daf Samach Dalmi. It's Hashem that she has a certain amount that she owes her husband, and therefore that's why they hold that's in place of that. Just like Mark continues regarding that machlekes. Shus goes by the Bakazach and Cheskel comes from that Bachai. Krishna is doing today's Daf. Some of these in discussing today's Daf are machlekes in our Mishnah between Yomei and Rabbi Shloimy regarding Makdish Meiser Ma'aseh. If the husband sanctifies the excess of her handiwork, if that's going to be kaddish or it's going to be chulin, and in that machlekes how to qualify that. Also machlekes as to when hektish meiser ma'aseh, which again according to Meir is going to be kaddish, when exactly does the husband attain authority for meiser ma'aseh that it's going to be hektish? Some of the important terms and concepts today's daf are the makdish davar shel ba'al. A person cannot sanctify something that's not in the world yet. There's certain activities that a woman has to do for her husband. So, as we said, that hamakdish maisi de ishtay. In the previous Mishnah, we said that if someone sanctifies his wife's maisi yadayim, her primary income. So the halachas we said hariza oisa b'cheles does not become hektish. That is something that he has no rights to. Hamoiser, but then the Mishnah said when he contributes the additional portion of her anticipated labors to hektish, then we had a machlekes Remeir and Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg. Remeir says it's going to be hektish. Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg says it's going to be chulin. What's the reason for that is because Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg holds you can't sanctify something that's not here, and therefore he has no rights to be makdish something that's not here. May held no, a person could be makdish a davar shloi b'la'olam. He could sanctify it, and therefore it's going to be hektish. Now we had a machlekes Rabbi Shmuel, however, in Rabbi Hava, when is it going to be hektish? Rabbi Shmuel said that the moister is la'acha misa kaddish. It's only going to be when he acquires it through Yerusha, but not while she's alive, and it's only going to be then that it's going to be kaddish. Rabbi Hava said no, moister mechaim kaddish. He acquires it even while she's still alive. The reason for that is because tiknu mezainis tachas moiser, and like you said, mid the kites, and therefore he held that you have it already now when she's alive, and therefore he's going to, because since you're giving her the equivalent of the more kesef is for the maisidayim, and the mezainis is for the it's for the moiser. So therefore, since you're giving her mezainis, so you have the moiser of it's in your property, it's in your rights, and therefore you can be makdish. Now, the Gemara, however, continues meisri. This in the middle of the Gemara's discussion. The Gemara asks on Rav Ada bar Ava, again, what's the equivalent of what? According to Rav Ada bar Ava, midid the kaitz, midid the kaitz. The mo'a kesef, which is a set amount that the husband gives every week to his wife, not the mezainis, something else, is in place of. It's the correlation of the ma'aseh yadayim. Says the Gemara Meisri. The Gemara asks from the following brayso. Taking the mezainis, the brayso says they instituted that the woman gets fed. Tachas ma'aseh yadaha, in place of that her handiwork goes to her husband. So it seems to be a clear contradiction. Rather, Barava, we see it's not the moiser that's in place of the mezainis, although those are set amounts. It's like Rabbi Shmuel said, not like Rabbi Barava. So it says the Gemara, no, Amos say no. Tachas meiser ma'aseh yadaha. Read it that it's not a place of the ma'aseh yadayim. It's a place of the meiser ma'aseh yadayim, the excess, not the 5 shkolim of the seller of the Yehuda. It's the meiser. So again, he just adds on that one word, but changes it to the meiser. Tashmat Digmar has another raya, not like Rabbi Shmuel, meaning yes, like Rabbi Abraham, but from the Mishnah later on the Samach Dalma base. The Mishnah says, the husband, he feeds her, but he doesn't give her the silver maw that every week she needs, like, the extra stuff that she needs for it. So then says, the Mishnah, her ma'aseh yadayim, her earnings are for herself. That sounds like Rabbi Bar Ava, that the Mal Kesef and Mais Dam, which have the same amount, those are in place of each other, not the way Rabbi Shmuel said that what's Shchiach is learned from what's Shchiach, that Mezainis and Mais Yadayim are in place of that. Here we see that's the Mal Kesef, that's the equivalent of the Mais Yadayim, not like Rabbi Shmuel. So it says the Gemara, you could say the same type of answer of Rabbi Shmuel. No, it's Meiser Mais Yadayim Shalah. The Mishnah was saying, if he doesn't give her the silver ma, the weekly stipend, then the excess of the Mais Yadayim is hers. Not the Mais Yadayim, because the Mais Yadayim has nothing to do with the Mal Kesef. It has to do with the Mezainis. Says the Gemara, but here that answer seems to be difficult. Because V'alo Ketani, on that Mishnah, we learned that the Mishnah says, Mahi Oisaloi, what is it that her handiwork, what is that she owes to their husband? In place of the Mal Kesef that he gives her every week, that's the Mishnah. It's a mishkal, it's a weight of chamish shlam, of 5 sela, of shasi, of warp thread. What's significant about warp versus the weft is that it's more difficult to make those threads more than the weft thread. So it's more expensive, of Yehuda in Judea, which is as we'll see, that's versus that of the Galil. But the fact is, from the fact that after you're explaining the Mais Yadayim, you're saying, and what does she make for him? The inference is that when the Mishnah was talking about the Reisha, was talking about the Mais Yadayim and not the Meiser. You're trying to give me an answer and tell me, no, read the extra word Meiser, add on the word Meiser. If he doesn't give her the Sela, so then the Moav Kesef, then she gets to keep her Meiser Mais Yadayim. But read the word next word in the Mishnah. Next word in the Mishnah are, and what is Mais Yadayim? It describes the Mais Yadayim, not the Meiser Mais Yadayim. So how can you tell me it's referring to the Meiser Mais Yadayim? So the Gemara says, no, that's not difficult. The Reisha of the Mishnah that we quoted, that we asked from, is talking about the Meiser, the excess. But Hachikamar, the Sefer, when it's coming to qualify, it's saying, and Mais Yadaha, what is her primary Mais Yadayim? Kama Hava, how much is it? The later that you should know Meiser Dida Kama, to know how much is the excess, what's beyond the primary. That is Mishkal Chomish Shlam Shasi Yehuda. That's a weight of 5 slum of the warp thread in Judea. Shein Esa Slum Galil, which is a weight of 10 slum in the Galil. So that's because the Sela in Yehuda was double in weight of that of the Sela of the Galil. But the point is that it's not difficult, because when the Mishnah answers and says, and what does she do for him? Not to tell me what's the halacha of the Reisha, to tell me that what's beyond that. And then that's what's beyond that, she gets to keep that, because actually the Moav Kesef is in place of the Meiser. So that could be like Rabbi Shmuel. It doesn't contradict Rabbi Shmuel from that Mishnah. Now that finishes that discussion that is not difficult, neither in Rabbi Barhava, neither in Rabbi Shmuel. And now the Gemara comes to paskin on this halacha of the machlekes of our Mishnah, again, which we said regarding Yechina Hasandler and Remeir. We were just discussing in Remeir that says that if the husband is makdish, the Meiser of Mais Yadeha, what's the halacha going to be? Remeir says Kaddish, Yechina Hasandler is going to be Chulin. So we had a machlekes about Rabbi and Rabbi Shmuel. When is that going to be Kaddish? That going to be when she's alive? Because the husband has right to it right now, because we described what the case was, that Ma'alo Mazainis ve'ina Ma'alo Mal Kesef l'tzacheh. He's giving her Mazainis, but not Mal Kesef, and that we said, so that's machlekes about Rabbi and Rabbi Shmuel. What is the equivalent of the Meiser? Is it in place of the Mazainis, or is it in place of the Mal Kesef? And whichever opinion you hold, you'll hold that it will be either Kaddish right now, because he has the right to it right now. Only after she dies, then it's going to take effect then, because only then there's a yarshin from her, but he doesn't get it when she's alive, because he wasn't giving her the Mo'al Kesef. Now we're going back to the original machlekes of the Mishnah. Who's the halacha like? So Amar Shmuel says halacha Rabbi Yechina Hasandler, halacha Rabbi Yechina Hasandler, who he says you cannot sanctify the meiser. It's going to be chulin. It's not hektish at all. Says the Gemara, wait a second. Did Shmuel really say this? In other words, Shmuel had previously explained. We just quoted Rav and Shmuel. He had explained that this halacha of meiser, of the excess, that Reb Meir is saying that it's going to be kaddish, that Rabbi Yechina Hasandler is disagreeing with him and saying it's going to be chulin, was that the whole case was after the woman dies. That's what Reb Meir says it's going to be kaddish. Not like Rabbi Habu says it's going to be when they're alive. Only after the death. And on that, Rabbi Yechina Hasandler disagrees, says no, it's going to be chulin, even though now after she dies, it's his. So obviously the reason that Rabbi Yechina why it's not going to be kaddish is because it's a davar shalai b'la'olam. When he sanctified that she wasn't dead yet, and he has no rights in that meiser at that point, because again, he wasn't giving her the Mo'al Kesef, and that's when you tell me Shmuel holds halacha as Rabbi Yechina Hasandler. So it must be that Shmuel essentially is saying that you cannot be makdash davar shalai b'la'olam. I freak the Gemara as what's not. We learned in the Mishnah Masechet Nedarim that says as follows: if the woman says to the husband, I'm taking a neder. Whatever I make is forbidden to your mouth. That it should be like hektish that you cannot benefit from it. So the Tanna Kama says, "Ein tzarich lahafer." The husband does not have to nullify this vow because she has no authority to sanctify, because that's his rights for her ma'aseh daim. Kivaim says, "No, yafer. No, he should nullify her vow. Why? She has no rights. The ma'aseh daim is owed to him, so she can't make a neder prohibiting it. No, he should make a vow shemetada b'lav yesim in a roloi, because maybe she's going to earn more than what the sages gave the rights from the wife to the husband of the weight of 5 slum. That meister, that excess is not the husband's, and therefore she could sanctify it. And therefore, because of that excess, therefore, for that, he should go ahead and nullify the vow. A third opinion, Rabbi Shloimy Nuri Amar, he says, no, even for the primary ma'aseh daim, he should be yafer, he should nullify it. Why? Why should he nullify it? It's owed to him. She can't make it forbidden. No, because Shena, Yiger Shena, maybe he's going to divorce her. And if he divorces her, then she could prohibit her ma'aseh daim to him. Now she doesn't owe anything to him, they're divorced. And then the vow is going to take effect once he divorces her, because now she's not meshubit to him anymore, her handiwork. And then then he's going to be prohibited to remarry her, because now that the vow takes effect and everything she makes is forbidden to him, he can't be careful to stay married with her if she can't cook for him, and she can't grind for him, and she can't do any other work that's mentioned in the Mishnah on Lamed Beis that a woman does for her husband. So because that's Rabbi Shloimy Nuri, nullify the vow, because if you decide to get divorced, you won't be able to remarry her, because then it's going to take effect. That's the machlekes in the Mishnah of Zadar. Three machlekes. But the main point is what Shmuel says on that. Shmuel says, halacha Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Halacha is like Rabbi Shloimy Nuri. So obviously, that when you divorce her, the vow is going to take effect. That's his whole concern. So obviously, a person could sanctify something that's not here yet, because he didn't divorce her yet. So what are you nullifying a vow? What do you mean taking effect then? She's not divorced. She has no rights in it yet. Or you're saying for then it'll take effect. So that seems to be a contradiction in Shmuel. On the one hand, he's passing his ruling like Rabbi Yochanan and Mishnah that evidently is because you cannot be makdish davar shel that you could be makdish davar shel oil. That's why Rabbi Yochanan said no, that you cannot be makdish it, because you can't be makdish davar shel oil even though he's going to divorce her. Meaning it's when he dies that he's going to have it. And yet he's saying that you see you could be makdish davar shel oil. So how do we resolve the contradiction in Shmuel in how he's passing the halacha? Says the Gemara, it's not difficult. Kiyama Shmuel, when did Shmuel say halacha in our Mishnah? Halacha Rabbi Yochanan, meaning in the Mishnah says the term halacha Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, that you should nullify it because he might divorce her. That's lahadafa. That's for the excess. In other words, as Rashi explains, this that he says the halacha is Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, that you should nullify the vow, is not because of the reasoning of Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. According to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, the primary ma'aseh daim have to have a hafar. Why? Because, and that actually he was his words. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri was saying, as Rashi had explained it, no, yafer shemi gershena, the whole ma'aseh daim you have to be careful about, because you might divorce her, and then it's going to take effect. No, according to Shmuel, it's not true, because Shmuel holds, like Rabbi Yochanan Hassan Rav Mishnah, that it does not take effect. You cannot be makdish davar shel oil. But according to Shmuel, the reason is because of the hadaf, of the excess. She might make more than what she owes him. For that is what he's saying, you should nullify a vow. Now, Rashi points out that at this point the Gemara could have asked, at the end of the day, it's still shlei b'la'olam. Because even the hadafa, even the meister wasn't done yet. So what are you gaining? I thought you can't be makdish davar shlei b'la'olam. But the Gemara asks a different question that anyways rejects this interpretation. Because the Gemara says, wait a second, you're telling me when Shmuel rules, halacha Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, that you should nullify the vow, it's not really for the ikar ma'aseh daim, it's for the hadafa. And for the hadafa, so that he has rights, for that she has rights to, because that she doesn't owe him, it's not ikar ma'aseh daim. But it says the Gemara, well, why are you saying halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri? V'leim halacha Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri lahadafa. Because he says for everything, because he's concerned you're going to divorce her. Now you, Shmuel, you're not concerned for divorce, because that's a davar shel oil, it's not going to take effect then anyway. So then say halacha like him, specifically regarding hadafa. Don't just say it's like him. Or you not me say, ein halacha Tanna Kama. Tanna Kama had said, you don't have to nullify. No, she owes it to you. Say, no, halacha is not like Tanna Kama, but you have to nullify it, because you're not really like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. So just say halacha is not like Tanna Kama. Or you know, say Allah Rabbi Kiva, that's actually the best option. Rabbi Kiva was the one who actually held that you should be Yafar Shemetadav Alav Yes Menurah. You're really saying like Rabbi Kiva, really, essentially. You're saying like Rabbi Menuri, but not because of his reason, not because of the Ikamais Dam when you're going to divorce, it's rather because of that Dafa. Well, that is Rabbi Kiva's opinion. So the Gemara says you're right. It's not a good answer for the contradiction. Ella rather Amar Yisuf, he comes to say a different resolution. Truth is, when Shmuel said Allah is like Rabbi Menuri, it was going because of the reasoning of Rabbi Menuri. And the reason why Shmuel is ruling like him is because maybe he's going to divorce her, and at that point the net is going to take effect. So then wait a second, we have a contradiction. Does Shmuel hold like the halacha of our Mishnah that you cannot be makdish davar shel olam, or does only Rabbi Yochanan Sandler who seems to be saying that you could be makdish davar shel olam, and they will take effect when they're not married anymore? So the Gemara, it's not different. It's not a contradiction. You know why? Because kainamais ka'amrit, you're talking about a case of the Mishnah that's talking about a kainim, and therefore you ask a kainim is a type of a neder, type of a hektish, which actually the discussion is kainamas hektish or is a neder, but be that as it may, you're asking on the halacha of our Mishnah, which is talking about an actual hektish. Ooh, no, they're different. We were assuming they're the same thing. They're both like sanctifying it. Shani kainamas, the kainamas of hektish is not a hektish for everybody. It's on one person that you're saying in terminology of a kainim. That's different. Why? Mitoich, because since that you're grabbing something that's not a regular hektish, where sha'adam oisa peres chaveiro love, kainim is very unique. You could make someone else's produce forbidden on yourself. You could say, kainim peres ploini alai. That guy, Yankel's fruits are kainim on me. Now, a regular hektish, you cannot be makdish something that's not yours. So it's something very unique about kainim that you can make this hektish even though it's someone else's. Oh, so therefore, adam makdish davar shel olam. So it's also unique that you could make a kainim to make prohibited even if someone that's not in the world yet. And that's why the Mishnah Masechet Nedarim, Shmuel was concerned for Rabbi Menuri to say, no, you got to nullify it because what's going to happen is even though it's shleibel olam, a kainim is very unique. Kainim is not the same as regular hektish. You see, you can make someone else's thing forbidden. You can't make someone else's thing forbidden. Kainim you could. And the same thing is davar shel olam. You also could, and therefore it will take effect when she gets divorced. So nullify now because you're not going to have to remarry her. In contrast, Allah of our Mishnah, when you're making a regular bona fide hektish, oh, that doesn't take effect as quickly as kainim. Just like we see, you can't make someone else's thing forbidden. So too, it won't take effect if it's a davar shel olam, if it didn't yet happen, and therefore he ruled like Rabbi Yochanan Sandler says it's chulin, because even if when they're not going to be married anymore, it's not going to take effect either, because right now it's a davar shel olam. That's the interpretation that Rabbi Yosef said. Now, as we find throughout Shas, Abaya asking Rabbi Yosef, his student, Amalei Abaya. So Abaya said, wait a second, Rabbi Yosef, your answer it has problems. Because what type of proof are you bringing when you're telling me someone else's pay rise, that you're showing me kainim is unique, that you can make it forbidden, to over here, which is peiros chaveroi al chaveroi? Because what's the case you're talking about over here in the Mishnah Masechet Nedarim? She is meshubet to him with her ma'aseh yadayim. She can't go ahead and make a claim on him, what's his, even, that it's only when she gets divorced that it should take effect. Additionally, another problem is that the malacha is only going to be done after gerushin. And how could that take effect? As the Gemara explains what we just said. Abai says to Rabbi Yosef as follows, says, I don't understand how you're answering this. I understand what you were telling me, what's unique about kainim, that a person can make someone else's peiros forbidden on himself with a kainim, which that's why you're trying to show me that kainim is different than that of hektish. Why could you do that? I'll show you why. And this is the way Tatais explains it. Because you can make your own peiros forbidden on your friend. Whether you're taking a terminology of kainim just to your friend, or whether you're making a generic terminology of hektish, which makes it forbidden on everyone, as long as one of the two variables are in his rights, either the forbidden object or the object, meaning either he can make his thing forbidden on that person, or that person's thing is to be on him. So either he's the subject, or he's the one who is making the thing prohibited. So that I understand. But are you telling me that you aser davar? You should make something forbidden shaloi b'la'olam that didn't yet happen al chaveiroi on his friend. So the work is not here, and the rights that she has is not here yet until she gets divorced. She can't ein adam oitzepedes chaver al chaveiroi. It's a little bit complex. It's really a little hair splitting here, but you can't make someone else's fruits forbidden on someone else. Where you're coming from, you can't learn to say that there's a prohibition, even by kainim, because a person cannot make someone else's forbidden fruits, like you can't say kainim pedesecha lecha. I can't tell someone else, hey, your fruits are forbidden on you. You can't do that. So what are you trying to tell me that you're answering the contradiction of Shmuel? How he passes the Rechon Salma, and he passes the Rechon Menuri. From the fact that kainim is different than hektish, our Mishnah is hektish, Mishnah Dharm is Toma kainim, and therefore they're fundamentally different. Fundamentally different with what? With if one of the two are yours, either you are the subject of the neder or you're the one who has the rights on the object to make the neder. That is where kainim is unique. But to tell me that someone else's thing you're making forbidden on him, where'd you ever find kainim could have that? And we never found that. And that's what you're trying to tell me over here. The woman is married to the husband. She's saying, kainim, whatever I make, it's forbidden to you. You're telling me that yes, you have to be made for it. Why? Because when she gets divorced, it's going to take effect. What take effect? Now, it's Daf Yomi. You told me you were like Rabbi Shloimy that there is no such hektish in Daf Yomi. Oh, you tell me no, kainim is different. Why is kainim different? Oh, because kainim is something that you see, you can make someone else's thing forbidden on you. Or you can make your own thing forbidden on someone else. Yeah, but that's when one of the two things are yours, either as the subject or as the one who owns the object. But to say someone else's thing forbidden on them, which is the case of the Mishnah in the Dharm. Because you're telling the husband, you know, the ma'aseh time I owe you, which is yours, it's forbidden to you. So it's like saying, kainim pedesecha lecha. Where do you get the right saying that? Why should it take effect if your whole davar shalei b'olam is not kaidish? So therefore, Abai says your answer is not valid, it's not tenable in regards to what you're trying to make a chilik. Right, it's his. So that's like saying, kainim pedesecha lecha. She's saying, what I make is forbidden to you. So Yochanan ben Nuri says, okay, you should be made for it. You know why? Because if you get divorced, you can't remarry her. Because it's going to take effect then. Take effect then? But it's Davar Shalei B'Layla. Oh yeah, but Kainam is different. Kainam is you could do it now. Why could you do it now? Because you see, you could say, your parents are forbidden on me, or I could say my parents are forbidden on you, even though I'm only doing it you and me. But what does that have to do with the case that, where you're saying yours are forbidden on you? Where did you ever find that you could do such a thing, even with Kainam? So Elamar Rav Huna B'Rei B'Shua, he says a different answer to resolve the contradiction of Shmuel, how he rules like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. He says it's Toma B'Imeres where she says Yikatru Yodai La'Osehem. My hands are being sanctified for the one who made them, meaning Tashem. The Yidayim Isnu Ba'Olam. The hands are here in the world. It's as if the Malacha was already here. I says Rashi, but the Gerushin's not here. So that the Gemara is going to conclude in that question. Now, however, our Mishnah is talking about where she says, Ma'aseh Yadech, I mean the husband says, that your Ma'aseh Yadayim are hektish. That's a Davar Shalei B'Olam, and therefore that's not going to be kaidish. But in the Mishnah Masechet Nedarim, how Shmuel rules like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, he shows from our Mishnah Rabbi Yochanan that you cannot be makdish Davar Shalei B'Olam. Oh, in the Nedarim it's not Davar Shalei B'Olam. She's being makdish, not a Ma'aseh Yadayim, which is not here yet. Her Yadayim is what she's makdish. That is B'Olam. But we still have to address the problem about, but she's not divorced yet. So it's still, her rights to it are still labeled Olam. But we'll address that in a moment. Says the Gemara, now, you think if she says this, Mima Kacha, you think it's going to be sanctified? But Hamashab delay. But what do you mean? Even if her hands are here, so that's not labeled Olam, but she's Meshubat to him. So she has no rights to be Makdish it. Oh no, says the Gemara, she said, she said, when I'm going to get divorced, then my hands are going to be sanctified. And again, that's the problem you run into. And therefore, Shmuel says, Allah because when you get divorced, then it's going to take effect, and then you can be forbidden to her, and then you can't get remarried to her, so they'll be made for it now. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. When Mikamidi is there such a thing, the Ilah Hashlei Kaddish, if now it wouldn't take effect and be sanctified, will it Kamei Kaddish? And later on it's going to be sanctified. In other words, how Rashi explains the Gemara's question is, you answered to me why the Malach is not Shalei B'Olam, because you told me that she's being Makdish, not her Ma'aseh Yadayim, actually her hands which are here, but you didn't answer the other part of the question. What's with the fact that she's not yet divorced? That you didn't answer. Because right now she has no permission to be makdish it. So how could you makdish something that's not here yet, which is that when she's going to be divorced? It's still labeled olam. So Mebeloi, he says, Alam alai, why not? And now we go through an interesting conversation. The Gemara goes through different cases to try to illustrate why this would be considered not a problem of shlei b'loy. And we try drawing parallels to different areas of halacha. He says, why not? He says, Ilu, take for example, someone tell his friend, on this field that I'm about to sell you, when I'm going to buy it back from you, then Tikadish is going to be sanctified at that point. Mila Kacha? You think it's not going to be sanctified if the guy sells the field to the guy and then rebuys it? You don't think it's going to be sanctified at that point? So that's the same thing over here. That, you're right, now she's not divorced, but I'm saying when I will be divorced, it'll be sanctified. So it'll take effect then, just like the case of a guy who's selling a field. So the Gemara says, what are you talking about? Master B'Yirmiyah, he asked me, dummy, how are you comparing these two cases? Hasam over there in the case of the guy selling the field, B'Yodoi Lahaktisha, he's able to sanctify it right now, because right now it's his. Had he been sanctifying it right now, it'd be kodesh. So even though he's selling it to you, but he'll buy it back, it will take effect then, because now what's called B'Yodoi. But also over here by the woman who's making a kainim on her husband, ain't B'Yodoi L'Gashes Hatzma. She doesn't have the ability to divorce herself. So how can you tell me that she can be makdish now and this should take effect when she's going to get divorced? It's a fundamentally different case. Rather, says the Gemara, and this is actually a conclusion of the question, rather it's not comparable, only rather similar to a different case. Someone says to his friend, this field that I already sold you, it's already yours. Oh, when I'm going to buy it back from you, Tikadish can be sanctified, it's actually not going to be sanctified because you don't have the ability to sanctify right now, so it's labeled olam. So that's actually what it's equivalent to. It's actually back to the contradiction of Shmuel. That
like by olam is because you don't know what its value is going to be. Like
no,
how many fruits a tree will have.
Not necessarily.
This is a piece of land. The land is going to that's going to change.
Right. So it's not necessarily that it's not here, but you don't have it. In other words, your rights on this thing is labeled olam. You can't be makdish just like the guy who's becoming a ger or whatever. He's there, but is not the entity of the ownership of the rights is labeled olam. You can't go ahead and sanctify it. So therefore, we're back to the question. It seems to be that in this case, she should not be able to be makdish, and therefore that contradicts our Mishnah, which regarding that said that you cannot be makdish. And he was saying that he is concerned for when she's going to get divorced. So Maskil Rav Papa actually asks on the questioner. He says, "Me dummy, is the case you're saying comparable? It's not true. Hasam over there when the guy already sold the field to the guy, the case that he just described, the machartilach." Gufa upedis biyad lekech. The actual principal and the produce are in the possession of the buyer. So now the owner doesn't have not the principal, not the payers. And of course, you cannot be makdish davar she'ein shaloi, something that's not his. So again, it's not really she'ein ba'olam, but it's not really his. Hach over here in the case of the Mishnah Masechet in the Dharma, when the woman makes a kainim, gufa biyadahu, the principal is in our hands, meaning she's sanctifying her yadayim. That is her hands. She doesn't have the maisi then, the hands are hers. So you can't really compare it to the case that you're asking with. So holeidamya, so this is the conclusion of the questioner on the questioner. Ella, you should only compare to someone who says to his friend as a getintam and bays, a different case. This field that I gave you as collateral, when I'm going to redeem it from you, to kaddish, it should be sanctified. There it's the kadsha. There it is sanctified. So that's really what a woman's like. A woman's hands are hers. I own this field, but it's collateral for you. You got to take my ma'aseh. So the Gemara has resolved the question. The reason why Shmuel is passing like Rabbi Yechon Menuri in this Mishnah, although he holds you cannot be makdish davar shalom b'laylam, because it's not totally davar shalom. It's not totally davar she'ein shalom. It is mine. You just have it as collateral. And therefore, of course, if you had my collateral, I can be makdish because I own it. The woman can be makdish her yadayim, even though she's not yet divorced. And that is why the halacha of Shmuel is not a contradiction. It's not considered davar shalom b'laylam. But then the Gemara still continues. And Maskil Rav Shesha B'Rei David, he asks, "Me dummy? Is it really comparable to the case of a mashkin? It's not really the same thing. Why not? Hasam over there by the case of the mashkin and the collateral, b'yadai liv daisa, the owner of the field, it's in it, and b'yadai is a very key word over here. It's the ability you have right now. You can redeem it. So therefore, if I'm not, it's just going to take effect. Here, she doesn't have the ability to divorce herself, so it's not really comparable exactly. So Holy Dami says the Gemara that you can't really compare it to the case of this field that I gave you as collateral unspecific. Eli, rather you have to amend it a little bit. You have to say, someone says to his friend, this field that I gave you as collateral for 10 years, weird. The owner of the collateral cannot redeem it and sanctify right now because he promised it's going to be collateral for 10 years. But when he tells him, like, that when I'm going to redeem it for you, it's going to be sanctified, where yes, the halacha is going to be the kodesh, it is going to be kodesh. Why? Because it's his. Even though he can't redeem it right now. Oh, that's exactly like the case of the woman, where she owns her hands, but she can't redeem it at her own will because the husband has to divorce her, she cannot divorce herself. And just like over there, it's going to be kodesh because you own it, even though it's not biyad lakdisha. So to the woman, her kainim will take effect, and therefore Shmuel passes the Rebbe Menuri and doesn't contradict when he rules like Rebbe Hasan na Mishnah that you cannot be makdish davar shalom because it's not shalei b'olam. It is on some level hers. But the Gemara still asks and says, no, it's not perfect yet. Maskil Ravash. He says, mi dummy, is it still comparable? Hasam lesa shana mi biyad levdaisa. There, at least his expiration date. At least after 10 years, he could redeem that field that's collateral. Over here in the case of the Mishnah Masechta and the Darim, in biyad l'gar she can never redeem herself. So it's still not a good case. You're not comparing it exactly. You still haven't found for me a precedent in the halachic context to show me that why am I concerned for her kainim to say that it's going to take effect, that you have to be mafrid, and it's not a problem shleibel olam by comparing it to this case of selling something to someone else. So rather, the Gemara rejects actually the approaches that we took up until now. And the Gemara takes a whole new approach. Amar Vashi. He says, Kainamis Kamrit? Really? You're asking on the two Mishnayos that Shmuel rules like. In our Mishnah, he rules like Rabbi Yochanan Sandler that if he's being makdish the Meiser of a Meiser dying, we say, Nech, it's chulin. Shmuel says, we don't have to be concerned. When's it going to take effect? When she dies and then he inherits her? That's like b'laylam. Nothing's happening. At the same time, Shmuel's ruling like Rabbi Yochanan Nuri in Mishnah that's the Dharma, and the woman says, she's upset. Her husband says, Kainim shemashia whatever I make, it's forbidden to you. What do you mean? Your earnings are owed to me. So why do I have to be made for? No, you have to be made for. So Rabbi Yochanan Nuri, and Shmuel rules like that. Why? Because when he's going to divorce her, then it's going to take effect. What do you mean? Isn't that a contradiction to what you said when you rule like Rabbi Yochanan Sandler in our Mishnah? No, because our Mishnah is hektish, and this is kainamis. So what's the difference between kainamis and hektish? So we already tried one approach of differentiating between kainamis and hektish. Here the Gemara takes a different approach. Shani kainamis are different because the kedushas haguf minu. It has a physical sanctity, like when you makdish something for the mizbeach, which you cannot redeem. So there's no redemption for a kainim to be permitted for the one that it's forbidden on, because it's not like a full-fledged hektish that it could affect a redemption. It's only forbidden on one person, so it's actually not even strong enough to affect a redemption. Oh, so since it has a physical sanctity, it removes from a shibud, which you're right, she is mushabedis to her husband, but a kainim could remove a shibud, and that's why it takes effect. So it's not. And wait, so the Gemara is going to actually ask later on. So why are you saying shemi gershena? It should take effect right now. You're telling me the kainim is mafkir the shibud. So why are you saying shemi gershena? It's not about shemi gershena. But okay, we'll discuss that in a moment. But this why kainim is going to take effect. It's not shalei b'loilam. It's taking effect because the kainim hektish cannot remove. It's not yours to be makdish. A kainim could remove a shibud that a woman has to her husband. Ukid the Rabbi, like Rabbi said. The Rabbi says the following halachas have this criteria. Hektish, for example, let's say someone made a lien on his ox for his creditor, and then he was makdish that ox. That removes the shibud that the lender has, and he's going to have to collect his debt from somewhere else. And actually, that ox is kosher for a carbon. It's not considered stolen because it wasn't acquired to the creditor. It was just that's where you'll collect from. That's specifically physical sanctity. But if you made it monetary sanctity for the Bedek Abayis, that would not remove from the Shibud. As the Mishnah teaches in Erech and Chav Gimel Beis, all you do is add on another dinner and then you redeem these assets. But if you're making a physical sanctity, which is what a kainim is, and which is what a hektish from Mizbeach is, that will remove from Shibud. Chametz. What's the case of chametz? So let's say a Jew borrowed money from a non-Jew, and he has a whole warehouse full of cereal. He went and he got a closeout somewhere. He's in an Amazon business. He's got this whole warehouse of life cereal. So he says to the guy, Here, this is where you're going to collect from the $10,000 I owe you. Now, what happens is it comes Pesach time. So the Isra of Chametz removes the shibud, the lien that the non-Jew has, and now that all those boxes of cereal become forbidden hana. Rashi says, I Mishnah teach in Pesachim Daf Lama Beis that if a non-Jew lends a Jew on the Jew's Chametz after Pesach, it's mutter b'hana. That the Gemara explains over there is talking about where you actually went and you took the live cereal and you got all those trucks and you put it in his warehouse. And then it's not going to be forbidden because you already gave it as collateral to the non-Jew. But if it's in the Jew's warehouse, it's going to remove the shibud that the guy has and it's going to become forbidden like a Jew's chametz over Pesach. Additionally, a similar case of a shiur. Let's say someone makes his slave an apoitiki, which is that he tells the lender, here, if I'm not going to pay the $10,000, oh, you can take my slave. And then he frees the slave. The slave is freed. And the lender is going to have to collect his money from somewhere else. Because these three things are mafkiin v'dei shima, they remove from a lien, from collateral that someone has. And therefore, koinim is the same way. So though a woman is meshubah labala for the maisi dime, that's a shibud. That's just a lien. That's a right that he has. The koinim that she makes will remove it, and then it's going to take effect. So the Gemara asked the obvious question. If that's the case, why are you saying Shem Yigershena? And you're answering Shmuel, although he holds you cannot be back to the Shleibel Oil, like he says in our Mishnah, it's not Shleibel Oil, it's happening right now. So why are you saying maybe when they get divorced, it's taking effect right now, because the Kain removes it. So then it should be Kodesh right now. So the Gemara says an interesting answer. The rabbis strengthened the lien that the husband has when she is married to him, that they made him like a buyer and not like a lender. And therefore, you cannot be makish right now because I own it now, not just a shibud. I'm not like a malva. I'm like a lekeach. I already bought it. Only when we're married. Just that they don't want him to be able to makish it right now. So it's like this. For that, they made him like a lekeach. But when they're going to get divorced, where you don't have those rights anymore, then it's going to take effect because it really took effect right now. It's not really davar shelo olam. So therefore, it's like that interesting halacha. So we resolved the contradiction of Shmuel. He holds like Rabbi Yochanan and Asan in our Mishnah that it's going to be chulin when the husband is makdish, the maisa dayim, because that he only gets when she dies and he yarshins her. That is why Rameir said it's kodesh. But that's how Rabbi Shmuel, who Shmuel is we're talking about, explained the case. That's only made when after she dies. Not like Rabbi says when she's alive. Because they disagreed regarding what is the meister, what's the excess meister in place of? Is it ma'ah or is it the mazoinus? So Rabbi Shmuel says only after she dies. That's what Meir says. But Rabbi Yochanan says give me chulin, and that's how Shmuel rules because it's shleimel olam. He rules like Rabbi Yochanan in the Mishnah says that the woman that says Kim shanu laficha will take effect when they get divorced because not shleimel olam. Why not? Because it's a kohen. A kohen makes kedusha sakuf. A kedusha can remove a shibud, and therefore it really should take effect right now. But we make the husband like a lekech, at least when they're married, and then it's only going to take effect when they get divorced. And therefore, that's no contradiction in Shmuel. Now, look at the next Mishnah. Continuing on this theme of the rights that the husband has in the woman and what the obligations in the marital relationship is. These are the activities that a woman does for her husband. So she grinds, she bakes bread, the machabesa, she does laundry, and she cooks. You're taking a list. I hope everyone's keeping track over here. And she has to nurse the kids, and matzas lo hamita, and she makes the beds, spreads out the bedspread, and there's actually two types of matzas hamita of what it means the making the beds. She has to do work with wool. Now that's what a woman has to do. Now let's say she brings into the marriage one maidservant. So then, she doesn't have to grind anymore, she doesn't have to bake anymore, she doesn't have to do laundry anymore, because she's got her cleaning lady now. She brought in the shivcha, she doesn't have to do these activities. Now, let's say she brings in two maidservants, two ladies. The Gemara is going to ask, why don't you let her off the hook with one maidservant who takes her place? Why, if one maidservant should already be, she doesn't have to do anything. But Al Kapanim, when she has two maidservants, she has to do less. She doesn't have to cook anymore. She doesn't have to nurse her child anymore. She has a wet nurse. Let the shivcha do it. Shalish, if she has three maidservants, then she doesn't have to make the beds. She doesn't have to do work with wool anymore. Arba, she has four maidservants. Yesheves bekatedra. She sits on her throne. She doesn't have to do anything for the husband, to go to the grocery, to get him something from the attic. Doesn't have to do anything. Calls Nancy, calls Mary, whoever it is, and let them do it. I'm sitting here on my throne. Now, the Yazami disagrees. And we pass like this. Even if she gives him 100 maidservants, He forces her to do work with the wool. And the reason for this is a well-known concept is shahabatala, because not doing anything mevil dezima brings to immorality, and we don't want her just sitting around on her social media, whatever it is that she's doing. We need her to be doing some things, even if she has 100 maidservants, or if Tosa says, even if he's very wealthy and he could provide, doesn't make a difference. She's got to do something. He says a similar but different type of halacha. It says, Afa madres ishtoi. If someone takes a vow on his wife, milas malacha, I say, I prohibit you to do any work. You're a workaholic, no more work for you, you can't do any work, you have enough help in the house, stop hustling. So the halacha is, if he makes a neder, he actually has to divorce her and give her a ksuba. The reason for that is because not doing anything, which he prohibits her to do malacha, brings a person to shigain, to insanity. And for that matter, you can't make such a neder. If you made such a neder, you have to go ahead and divorce her, and you owe her the ksuba. Now the Gemara asks, one of the things you said that the woman has to do is she has to grind. But the water is what moves the wheel, which grinds. What do you mean she has to grind? It just means to say that she prepares the preparatory part of the grinding, where she puts it in the hopper and that grinds it, and she gathers the flour, but she doesn't actually do the grinding itself. Or if you base on everyone, you could say no, she grinds it out herself. But a hand mill, where she actually has to do the grinding itself. Now, says the Gemara, Masnid like Rebchia. Our mission is obviously not like Rebchia. Because Rebchia taught a brisa that Ein Isha, a woman is not here to do work. I hope the women are paying attention. Whoever learns the Talmud from the women, pay attention, it's very important. Ein Isha el Yafi. A woman is there to be beautiful. She's not here to do work. Ein Isha el Abanim. A woman's here only to have children. There's many ways how to interpret what that means. But Al Kabanim, that's not like the halacha of our Mishnah. Rebchia taught in the brisa, Ein Isha el L'tachshita Isha. A woman's there only for the adornments of a woman, meaning that you buy her jewelry, that she becomes beautiful. And that's what a woman is there, to sit pretty and not to do the work. Rebchia taught, he says, if someone wants to make shine his wife, he wants to make her beautiful, he should put her on linen garments. And if someone wants to make his daughter very white, he should give her almonds to eat, and give her milk to drink, close to her when she's becoming to the age of puberty, and then she'll have this white complexion. So if someone's very concerned about the superficial beauty, he should do these things for his wife and his daughter. Now, says the Gemara, Manika is bana. One of the things that we said that Taisa actually just points out that when we're saying that Rebchia says that Ein Isha el Yafi, only there for beauty, he says he's only disagreeing on the cases of grinding and baking and nursing the child. Those are things that take away from our beauty. But regarding, let's say, doing things with wool, that he doesn't disagree, because the things that she has to do that's going to take away from her beauty, that's what he is coming to disagree with. Now the Mishnah said one of the things she has to do is manikes b'na, she has to nurse her son. That's one of the things a woman's obligation is to the husband. It says the Gemara, let's say our Mishnah is like b'shamay. In the brisa, let's say a woman swears, I am not doing this nursing thing. We're getting formula, I know there's a shortage, I don't care, you get it. Find an order, I'm not nursing our kid. So B'Shamay, the school of Shammai say, okay, Shemetas Dad Mipib, we literally pull out the nipple from his mouth, and she doesn't nurse him because the vow is going to take effect. Obviously, she's not Meshubatim. If she's Meshubatim, like we said before, you cannot make a neder, something that you Meshubit to. And Beis Hillel says, no, Beis Hillel says, Kaifa Menikase. We force her, and she has to nurse the baby, because she's Meshubatim, and her vow does not take effect, because one of the things a woman has to do for the husband. Niskarsha, if she gets divorced, obviously in the Kaifa, he cannot force her, because she's not Meshubatim anymore. Now, but the Brisa does say something interesting. If let's say the baby recognized the mother, and the baby doesn't want to nurse from anyone else, what you do is you give the divorcee her wages, because then you can force her, when it costs us just to nurse the baby, because it's danger to the baby. Okay, but one thing we see is that Bishami says, you pull the nipple out of the baby's mouth, and yeah, she doesn't nurse anymore. So obviously the Mishnah is not like Bishamai, because the Mishnah said that you Meshubit. If you Meshubit, the neder wouldn't take effect. It's obviously not like Bishamai. So the Gemara, you can even say the Mishnah like Bishamai. What are you talking about in the Brisa is Kagun Shenadri Hi B'Kaimahu. It's a specific case. She took the vow, but he ratified, he verified, he authenticated, and he qualified that neder. So the Machlek is as follows. Savi Bishami held, the reason why the ned is going to take effect is because who knows now. He, so to speak, put her finger between her teeth, and when she's biting down, it's his fault, and therefore the ned is going to take effect because he did it. Although she's meshubatim, but you makayim it. So you lost out on your shiba now because you verified it, and therefore it's going to take effect. No, now she's putting her finger between her teeth. It's her fault because she took the nether, and she cannot take such a nether, and therefore the nether is not going to take effect because she's meshubat labal. But the Mishnah could be even like Beishamai. The problem is, says the Gemara, if that's the case, in other words, why don't you make the machlekes if she takes a vow prohibiting him and he's mekayim it? That Beishamai says she leaves and she takes the ksuba, and Basil says she leaves without it. So why are you making it about nursing? Why wouldn't you make it in general? If she takes a vow and he's mekayim it, does she leave with a ksuba? Not. Whose fault is it? And v'oitanya, moreover, another problem is we learned in the Braisa regarding old women, even if a woman did not take a nether, Beishamai says if she doesn't want her, she doesn't have to nurse. So you see clearly, Beishamai holds it's not a shibut that the woman has for the husband that she has to nurse the baby. Beishamai says she has that choice. So the Gemara, rather obviously machvart is clear. Must need like Beishamai. Mishnah's knowledge Beishamai because Mishnah says a woman is mishubit to the husband, she has to nurse, and Beishamai says no, she doesn't have to nurse if she doesn't want to. Bring it to any time.